On today's video, I have Taylor Loop, a legend in himself, a loan officer that has changed my business since day one. I know that I would not be where I'm at without him. And this guy went from nothing to 25 million to 50 to 75, and now he's part of a company that is doing $500 million a year. And I know and I believe that they will sooner or later have offices in every state. And if you want to learn something from someone, you have to watch this podcast, because I learned something from this guy every single day, and you're going to learn something too. Hope you guys enjoy. What's up, man?
Tell me.
Dude, I never thought this day would happen.
Yeah.
Taylor Loop in the podcast room.
That's right.
If you don't know, he's been holding out for so long from doing this.
It's my first podcast ever.
Well, congrats. Stop putting the water like in the middle of the camera. There's a camera right there. Like, put it up to the side. Yeah, put your hands. Where do you put your hands? Where do you put your hands?
They're not going to see my hands,
Yeah,
right?
I don't want to know to see my hands. So appreciate you coming in, man.
Absolutely.
I will say this. I always try to pump people up, but I will say I've always said this about you, that my career has been increased a lot based on working with you guys nonstop. So I can't thank you enough. Where I know that if it wasn't for you, I don't know if I'd be where I'm at today.
We would be in this podcast room.
Oh, definitely. Well, you're like, God damn it, I should have never talked to him. Should have never met him at Chili's.
That's right.
So I know who you are, and a few people know who you are, but why don't you tell people who you are?
So my name is Taylor Loop. I'm the vice president and one of the partners at Modern Lending, which is a brokerage that my partner Brian Decker and I and Itzel Hernandez opened up about 2.5 years ago.
Nice.
Been doing loans for...
What are you at?
Gosh.
7 years?
7 years.
7 years?
7 years. 7 years, yeah.
So what made you even get into loans? Real estate, most people think of realtors, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's the fashy, you know what I mean? Like, no one thinks about the loan. Definitely no one thinks about title. Who knows what title does anyways? But, like, what made you get into doing loans?
So I never, ever wanted to be a loan officer. I grew up around it. My father did mortgages back in the 70s and the 80s. And I always looked at mortgage guys like used car salesmen, right? You have the mustache, the bottle glasses, and it's just something I never want to be a part of. So about 7-8 years ago, I was ready for a career change, and I was actually we were in Menifee at the time, and we're like, hey, we're looking for good school districts. We have small children. So it was either Temecula or I have a lot of family in San Antonio, so I was going to move out to Texas. And so I was submitting job applications back through Edison, because I used to work for Edison, and also all these big oil refineries and corporate jobs in Texas. And so I'm fielding loan applications.
You're already locked in.
Yeah, I'm already locked in. I'm fielding job applications, and so I'm just talking to my dad, like any son would, like, hey, Dad, I'm getting offers from here, I'm getting offers from there. And he's telling me, hey, this is what because we see what everyone makes, right? Yeah. So he's like, hey, this is what that person probably makes versus what a really good loan officer would make. And being a loan officer is the type of job where the harder you work, the more money you make. If you go here, you'll make this, but you're only going to make that. You're going to clock in, you're going to clock out, you're going to have 2 15 minutes and a 30-minute break. And I was already self-employed, and I came from Edison. I was a data analyst at Edison, so I'm a numbers guy, and I had just sold my business. And so I didn't want to go back to the corporate life. And so I even thought I was going to go into real estate. I was like, maybe I'll go into real estate. My dad's like, no. Yeah.
Your dad knew.
Yeah, my dad knew. He's like, you're not gonna like real estate. He's like, you're more of a numbers guy. Do loans. And so most of the time when a bank hires you, or like a lender hires you, you have to have a book of business. But coincidentally, the Inland Empire Movement Mortgage people worked with my father back in the 70s and 80s. They worked with them, and I've known them since I was a little kid. So as a favor, I told my dad, I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I have enough money to live for 6 months to a year, and if it just doesn't work out, I'll move to Texas and go do that. And so they hired me as a favor with no experience, and then just been doing it ever since.
And then you blew up.
And as they say, what's the saying?
I have no idea.
The rest is history?
The rest is history. How was that adjustment for you? Obviously, there's so many people that see what you and what Brian, what I do, and they're like living that corporate life, and they want to jump into this business.
Yeah.
How was it, especially you said, you had kids, that transition of going from okay, I have guaranteed job, I have medical, I have insurance, yeah. I have all these things, and then it's like, hey, Chelsea, I'm going to go do this, and we're just going to figure out, how was that transition for you?
No, it's tough, and that's what my father-in-law asked me. He's like, when you asked me to marry my daughter, you said you were going to take care of her, you had this plan, you were working for Edison, you had benefits, you had this guarantee, and I told him this exact same thing. I was like, John, Edison offers a guarantee, but I'm the guarantee. I'm telling you, I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to be able to succeed and do well. And it's tough because, yeah, you have this freedom where I can skip out of the office early on a Friday, but at the same time, what people don't see is that, when I leave the office on Thursday to go to the river for the weekend, I wake up at 5 a.m. before I go on the boat, and I work and return emails for 2 hours. And then when everyone comes back in at 6 o'clock at night and they're all hanging out, relaxing, watching a movie, eating, I'm working for another 4 or 5 hours. So it has give and takes. But it's tough. It's tough, especially for the first 6 to 12 months while you're getting your business going. I didn't close any loans for 6 months. I made $0 for 6 months. $0. And, I made my $1,800 a month minimum wage that I had to pay all back in month 7 because I finally made some money. So,
is that how it works with loans? You get paid, and then the moment you start making money, you pay it back?
It's a draw against commission. So you have to, legally they have to pay you something. But for the first 6 months, I made $1,800 a month. And then month 7, I had like a 10 grand month. And I was like, oh, cool, 10 grand. And then it all went to pay back my commission. So I made $1,800 again. So it's tough, going from having the corporate benefits and, 401k with the 3% match. Everyone loves that. But then when you break it down, you realize that, your benefits are $500 a month. So if I can make 2, 3, 4 times the money, who cares about the benefits package? It's just that safety net for people.
Yeah, it's like always, I was down in San Diego yesterday hanging out with some guys that are Major League umpires, and that's always used to be the thing. When I was in baseball, I always wanted to become a Major League umpire because there was no floor, but there was a ceiling.
Yeah.
You knew what you're going to get paid. You knew you were going to get that salary. You knew you couldn't get fired. You knew you were going to have the retirement. And now this world, it's like, there's a floor, but there is no ceiling.
Yeah.
Like, it is whatever you want, you can make it happen.
No, yeah. The harder you work, the more money you make. And that's why, because people ask me like, oh, should I get in the mortgage industry? And I always tell them no, like jokingly.
Me too.
But I'm like, hey, the water's warm. Come on in and swim and find out what you can do.
Did you, during that 6 months, that time, how many times did you think about like, I can't, like I need to quit or honestly, that didn't happen?
That honestly didn't happen. And it didn't happen because I could see the writing on the wall. I could see that I was starting to get business coming in. I was getting leads. And also I had enough money to live on for a year. So it wasn't like I had no money and was super stressed out and going into debt for the first 6 months of a new business venture. I had enough money to live for a year. But no, after, the first month, I didn't even know what I was doing. Yeah. I remember I got a phone call I got my first escrow, and this guy calls me, and he's like, hey, when's the COE? I'm like, oh, let me check, and they call you back. And so I hang up, and I go to my manager. I'm like, hey, what's the COE? She's like, do you mean close of escrow? I'm like, yes. So, but no, during that 6 months, I could see the writing on the wall. I can see that, hey, look, now I'm starting to get things rolling. After you get a couple leads in, it takes a few weeks to get paperwork in. Once they're approved, it takes another month to buy a house. So by month 3 or 4, I could see it building. And for the first couple months, this wasn't my first time being self-employed, so I know that, hey, there's no money. When you start a business, there's no money for 6 months. So I was expecting that as it was, but I could see it start building pretty quickly come month 3, 4, and 5. And so I knew that if I kept on doing what I was supposed to do and trusted the process, that the results would pan out, that the results would come.
I think that's the thing that people don't realize. There's so many people in this industry, and it's really watered down. But like when someone comes in that takes it so serious, you have the ability to dominate the market.
Yeah, 100%. I run into lenders all the time where they do 1 or 2 loans a month, and which is fine, good for them. But it's such an opportunity for someone who's an actual businessman. Like the same thing with real estate. 10% of the agents do 90% of the business. The same thing with lenders. 10% of the lenders do 90% of the business because those 10% of lenders aren't just lenders, they're actual businessmen. They have a business set up, they have systems and checks in place. They're not just a guy doing loans. It's an actual business to them.
Yeah, so when I met you, you were doing about $25 million a year, I think it was.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And what made you kind of go out and seek your business partner Brian at that point? Too many guys, like you were number 1 at Movement, and you were getting President's Club, and everyone was kissing you, and you're big old Taylor Loop. What kind of made you? Is it something that you've always been that way, where you're like, hey, I got to go out, I want to go, I'm meant for bigger and better things, and I have to go find that person to help me get there?
Yeah, so and Movement was a great company, but I felt like pretty early on that I hit a ceiling there, that if I wanted to push through to that next level, that I was going to have to look elsewhere. And so it just kind of happened randomly. I was really, really excited. I think I did like 22 or 25 million that year, which is great, especially for only like the first or second full year in the business. And I saw like a Facebook post from Brian. He just did 150 million. And so I go to my wife. I'm like, this guy literally did 6 times what I just did. You and I are so happy about this.
Yeah.
6 times that. Not a little bit more.
Not
double that. 6 times that. And so I come from a sports background where, I was a catcher. So, and when I was in my prime, you emulate who you want to be, and so is Pudge Rodriguez. And so you study Pudge and see how he receives the ball, how he catches it, how he throws a second, his mechanics. And so I come from a sports background. I'm like, you know what? If he's doing 125 million, I know I can do more where I'm at. I'm at least going to go sit with him and talk to him to see if there's a thing or two that I can pick up and just pick his brain to go to that next level. And then so Brian and I met, had a conversation. Another year went by, and then at that point I was really ready to make that jump. And so that's why I left, to emulate and to do what he was doing, because I knew that where I was at a glass ceiling. I was told that, there was a guy in movement who at the time we did 100 million, and I was told by the people I was working with that, hey, he's only doing 100 million because he has multiple loan officers underneath him. They're running his production underneath him. That's not his production. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, like, I just did 25 million, and then yesterday I just asked you what a COE was.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. But I knew enough, and I'm smart enough to get things through and to learn as I was going. But I know that, no, I don't think that's the case, because I'm doing a sixth of what he's doing, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I guarantee you that he has systems and things in place to grow a business. And so that's why I reached out to him initially, and then that's why a year later I went over to work with him at Guaranteed Rate. And then, as you know, we ended up going to Loan Depot for 2 years, where he was like number 2 and I was like number 9 or 10 or something like that in the nation for Loan Depot. And then our branch, I think, was number 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever that was too for overall volume. But it was only 2 of us. We were going up against branches with 17, 18 loan officers, and it was just Brian and I at the other one. And then obviously we left Loan Depot after being there for 2 years and start up our own business.
Well, thank God, because I got tired of you switching emails on me, right? Like, I'd get a call and you're like, yo, bro, we're switching emails again. I'm like, we just got Guaranteed Rate locked in. Then we went to Loan Depot, and then I'm like,
at least it's not taylorlenz@gmail.com.
That's true.
Okay? At least it's not a Gmail, all right?
The funny part about us is that, like, so many people, like, you would switch companies, and then I would get calls or texts, be like, you and Taylor are not working together anymore. I'm like, we have never technically worked together. Like, oh, you guys don't work in the same company? I'm like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, Taylor, can you stop switching on me, man? Like,
I know, cool, because and that's the thing too. Like, when I got into loan business, I told my wife, hey, because that's one of the things I remember my parents arguing about when I was little, is that my dad was always going from bank to bank. Like, I think my dad worked at WAMU, which isn't even a bank anymore, Wells Fargo, Countrywide. He worked at like Mountain Financial, which is the old one that used to be inside like Century 21 or something, and like 5 or 6 different other ones. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm never going to switch banks. I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to be a good loan officer. And then you realize, being in the business, that's just part of it.
It's part of the game.
I left Movement Mortgage because I was capped there, and I couldn't grow my business with their model. And they have a great model. They're a great company. They're a lot like Edison. People love Movement Mortgage, and they should, because the way that their culture and the way they treat their employees is very good. But I was capped there. And then when we went to Guaranteed Rate, 2 months later, the wheels fell off. So we went to Loan Depot, and Loan Depot was great. And then in 2 years, we just weren't competitive with brokers. We had to go broker. And the unique thing about our company is that all brokers have good rates. But where brokers suck is with service and systems. Because they don't tell you when you go over to broker, hey, okay, you're a broker now, go broker. Oh, where's our operating system? Where's our CRM? Oh, no, you're a broker now. Like, give us the loan. Yeah. You figure it out. Uh-huh. And so that's what we've been doing the last 2 years, is taking the good things about retail, which are the systems, the communication, the CRMs, and bringing them over the broker world. So it's just been an evolution, and part of this business is change. Like, if I would have stayed at Movement Mortgage, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I was at today. If I would have stayed at Loan Depot, I would have been near where I'm at today. And maybe in 3 or 4 years, maybe next year, I might have to make another change. I don't think so, and hopefully not, but that's just part of the business. It's just the way it goes.
I mean, that's the thing too, is like, I'm at my 3rd company now, and it's just like, you hit a ceiling, and then you have to make an adjustment. You hit a ceiling, you make an adjustment.
Well, I mean, lending guidelines change every other week anyways. So if you think that one huge corporation is flexible enough to grow and adapt with you, maybe for some people, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah. So you guys, open modern, big, flashy, you have, in the last few years, you've made a name for yourself. Decker's had his name for himself for many years. How was that transition, like you said, going from working for companies, having all the systems in place, and then going to that side? How did you feel like it affected your business at all, having to now be part owner of a company and focus on the business part of it too?
Oh, it's 100% affected my business.
I mean, you still did 100 million last year, but like,
we still had a good.
You did all right. You did
okay.
You did okay last year.
When Brian and I first went broker, we were like, cool, we're gonna make 2 points a loan. It's gonna be awesome, and we're gonna make double the money, and it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna be 1099, and we literally make a little bit less per loan now as owners of a brokerage than we did when we went to retail, just because there's so much cost and expense and overhead that you just don't think about because you're all gung-ho and you see, oh, brokers make 2 points a loan or whatever. But yeah, it's had a huge effect, and it's been a huge learning curve. And for the first 6 months, I would say at least 6 months, I think Brian would attest to this too, it was a nightmare. I mean, Brian Itzel and I were at that office from 6 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m., going at each other's throats, going at our processors' throats. And I mean, and what they don't tell you, we thought when we first went broker, we're like, hey, we come from Loan Depot. It's one bank, one lane. We're going to get set up with 30 banks. We're going to set up with every bank you can think of. We're going to go and say, who has the best rates? I'm like, oh, cool. Today, Quicken has the best rates. Oh, cool. Caliber is this loan. And it turns into an absolute shit show nightmare. And so there's just a lot of stuff about being broker that I'm sure brokers that have been broker are laughing and going to say, oh, yeah, well, duh. But coming from retail, you're all excited to be 1099, make more money per loan, and be able to take your loan wherever you want. But what you don't realize is that, when you put one loan at 20 banks, then you lose your service, you lose your speed, you lose your control of that transaction. And so it was a huge learning curve just in the actual operations of being a broker. And then to couple that with learning how to be a broker, but also learning how to be a business owner, dealing with California labor laws, HR, payroll, overtime, time and a half, weekends off, vacation pay.
Oh,
I mean, we have 30 W-2 employees, and I feel like half of my day is signing requests to not work or off work requests. And I'm asking, like, how many sick days do these people have? I was like, I've been doing this for 7 years, and this guy's missed more time at work in the first 30 days than I've missed ever. They're like, oh, yeah, he still has 3 days left. I'm like, okay. So it's unbelievable. But in California, definitely doesn't make it easy.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're working more harder now that you're growing your company than when you were at like Loan Depot or Honor? Like,
definitely, 100% working harder. Yeah, because you have to. You're doing almost double the work. You're doing your normal loan origination activities, and then you're doing the activities of building, maintaining, and growing a company. Because the end goal is not to have to originate for the rest of your life, right? I mean, it's a great job, and it's a great way to make money. But yeah, you want to build a company so you have something lasting, a legacy, and so yeah, it's more work. That's why I always tell, like, a lot of the officers will call me and say, hey, I want to come over from retail, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, cool. Are you ready to make maybe the same money but 1099, which is awesome, and work probably 75% harder? And they're like, well, I'm like, yeah, it's more work. There's a lot more benefits to it. There's great things about it, but it's a lot more work.
Yeah. What was the big jump you think it was? The kind of, like, we just said right now, you went from 25 million when we first started, and last year you did 100 million, over 100 million. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
But what was it like that big? Like, that is, obviously what people don't get is, I'm on the real estate side, but they're like, oh, I want to do 50 deals a year. And I'm like, how hard it is to do 50?
It's a lot, and it's loan amounts too. So that was last year. I did 280 transactions. So it's a lot of deals. And it wasn't just overnight. So I went from 25 to 50 to 80 to 100. So a span of 3 years. But it wasn't. That's why I went over to work with Brian, right? I thought Brian was going to open up the curtain and there was like, oh, if you do this, that's going to give you 100 million. It's a combination of 1,000 small things. It's a combination of, sending out email updates in the morning to all your active escrows, and the operating systems and follow-up systems in place to make sure that the listing side and the buyer side agents are updated on every aspect of the transaction. Because now, after doing that for 6, 7, 8 months, all of a sudden I'll get a random deal in from a listing agent. Oh, you did a buyer for me 3 months ago. It was nice, blah, blah, blah. This is my uncle wants to buy. And so it's not one thing. It's not one trick. Now, there are things that he taught me and that I've learned that, are tricks, if you want to say. But it's a combination of a million small things. It's like I go back to playing baseball. You don't just go from not being able to pick up a bat to being a home run hitter. It's a progression, and there's a lot of little things that you have to learn to put together the big picture.
Well, I would say, watching you guys from the inside and the outside, it's just the work.
It's work.
Like we were talking about Decker's schedule the other day. I'm like, I could do that one day.
Yeah, it's intense. I mean, and I was talking to Brian yesterday actually, and I was telling him. So we get up every day. We work out together. We get up at 4:45, get home by about 6 o'clock, and then start working. And then I told Brian, I was like, I had a notification pop up in my calendar, and I was like, oh, I was going to snooze it for 8 hours. I was like, oh, that's probably too late in the day. And I'm like, 8 hours is going to be at 2 o'clock. And I hit snooze for 8 hours. And so, yeah, I mean, if you want to work 7-8 hour days, being a business owner isn't for you.
Yeah.
We start working every day like at 6:15, and I'm usually done by 5 on a normal day, and then 6:30 on a busy day, and then I'll leave the office at 5, go home and have dinner with the family, and then put the kids to bed, and then maybe spend like another 30-45 minutes working. So it's just more work. That's why people say, "Oh, what did Brian teach you?" I'm like, "Oh, work more."
Yeah. Well, and it's just like that, like we both come from the baseball world, but it's like, I mean, you play a lot of games, you show up every day. No one cares if you're sick.
Nope.
Get on the bus.
And consistency. That's another thing too. Being consistent.
Yeah.
People will come in and grind, and then they'll disappear. They'll quit.
Yeah.
Because it's a grind, and it's easy. Just like sports, it's easy to come out there and grind for a week, but it's tough to do it 5 days a week. Every week.
You can show up and have one good series.
Yeah.
Try to do that every series.
Yeah. It's all about
it's all about
you
have 160 games. Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because the bulk of the business I get is just from, people not following up, and hey, my lender doesn't call back. And so there's always the honeymoon phase, right? You give a lender a new deal and they start calling, they follow up, and then like 6 months later, you're like, no one calls, I'm not getting that same follow up. So, I mean, it's consistency. Hard work, more work, and being consistent are what I would say it is. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. I mean, obviously being smart helps, and the more deals you do, the more experience you get, the more, oh yeah, I remember on last time I had this situation, this is how I fixed it. That obviously plays a part, but if you work hard and are consistent, it'll make up for a lot of shortcomings.
Well, and I think like going back to why I thanked you so much in the beginning of this podcast is like the knowledge that you guys have given me gives me confidence. So when I talk to buyers, I know enough to get by, and then I go, oh, you need to talk to Taylor, because like after that I'm like, I don't know any more than that. Like I can get by enough with and I think that's the big mistake people do, is they don't ever take the time to learn the process and learn it, and then they're not working with the team around them to have them educate me.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, if people don't know, you're not on social media at all? You've never done a podcast before?
I mean, I've never done a podcast before. I don't have Instagram. I do have a Facebook page.
Barely.
And a business Facebook page.
Barely. I think you maybe shared a post the other day for the first time in like a year.
I had to call my wife and ask how to share. I'm like, babe, I want to post this. What do I click? And she's like, you see the button that says share? Click that.
Yeah. So Taylor has posted stuff, and I'm like, bro, I can't share that, so I need you to go back in and make it public. How do I do that? I have to screen record. So does it work out great for you that like Brian is so out there and perfect. You're so not?
Yeah. No, it's perfect because Brian is very out there. He enjoys it and he's good at it, and it's just something that I don't care to do. I look at having an Instagram page, or honestly, the only reason why I haven't got rid of Facebook is because Brian and our marketing manager won't let me. They're like, you have to have some type of presence.
Well, who am I supposed to tag when we close a deal?
Exactly. And I was like, I have a bunch of good Google reviews, Zillow and Yelp, but they're like, no, you have to keep Facebook. So I'm like, okay, I'll keep it. And then every once in a while I'll go on there and it's like Jersey Shore just to look at the shit show. It's like watching a car accident, right? But no, it works out perfect because he is so far out there. And everyone knows that him and I are business partners, and we have very different personalities when it comes to certain things, and we're very similar when it comes to certain things. But yeah, he enjoys it and he's good at it. So I know for a fact that being out there social media wise is good for our company, and the fact that he's good at it and does it anyways is just kind of a bonus. But it works out perfect because there's things that I do in our business that he isn't good at and doesn't want to do, and that's one of the things that he does that I'm not good at and don't want to do, because I just look at it as one more thing, one more task in my day. Okay, I got like a notification, I gotta go check and see what's going like, so I just don't even want to deal with it.
I know it's funny, people are like, I'm like, I don't spend time on there. I get on post, get off. Like I don't go on there and scroll and like look at what people are doing, because who cares?
Yeah,
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing about your social media is your wife, and and it's awesome because like
everyone keeps track of what we do.
I'll call the office, and then they'll be like, "Oh, Taylor's in a meeting." I'm like, "No, he's not. He's in Havasu. I saw his wife's post this morning."
Yeah. No,
she's gotten better at that, posting a week later.
She knows. So when we sneak off for a river trip, like on a Friday, Saturday, she'll post everything on Sunday, Monday, because that's what people keep track of me. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, are you in so-and-so right now? Like, no, I'm at the office. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people don't get that really does suck in our world is that when you do take that break, you can't really share it, because it's like,
no.
It's like, for us on our side, it's like, I had this trip planned for 6 months. I didn't know you were going to call me 3 weeks ago and list your house.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, one of the big things that I was really nervous about was the whole team concept, because I thought, if I start turning my leads over to a team to help me out, I'm going to lose that personal touch, and that's not the case at all. But so if you were to talk to somebody and say, hey, like my father-in-law, he has 4 weeks of vacation a year. You would say, oh yeah, that's super reasonable, right? Like everyone needs a break. But there is literally never a good time for me to take a vacation.
Never.
And the reason why is because if you were closing escrow on your purchase, would you want your loan officer to be gone? Of course not. That's your main point of contact. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're a first-time home buyer, you're super nervous, and you want to make sure that your guy's there for questions, which is all total valid reasons. But we're human and we have to be out of the office. We need it just to recharge. And so that's one of the tough things, that there's never a good time to take a vacation. So you just have to do it. That's why you have to have the systems and the teams in place to cover for you while you're gone, and to be able to solve problems. And when pre-approvals come in, get them approved, get them out there shopping. When an escrow question comes in, Itzel, our process manager who handles every single escrow, addresses it, makes sure everything is fine, and keeps the train rolling. And that's why it cracks me up too, where I've had agents balk at, oh, well, you don't call every single lead that we send. I'm like, no, I don't process the loan either. I'm not the notary who signs the loan docs. I'm not the title rep who files the paperwork with the county. I'm like, you need a good team around you, because God forbid, what if I get sick?
Yeah.
And your loan officer is the only person on his team. He's a loan officer, not a businessman.
Yeah.
And it's just,
it's a doctor effect.
Yeah.
I love how people, because we're in sales, they think we have to be something. It's like, go to you trust a doctor with your life.
Yeah.
How long do you actually talk to that person?
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
You get checked in by the nurse, then another nurse checks you, and then, hey, the doctor will be here in a minute. He comes in, doesn't even look you in the face. Okay, all right, we're going to give you these pills. The nurse is going to come and give you a shot.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
And I really thought that, I knew that if I went over to the team, that was one of the things I was nervous with about Brian, because one of his things was like, he's like, you're still calling for like bank statements and stuff like that? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, this will not only grow your business, but their customers will have a better experience
and that's all they care about.
Because of specialization. That person's job, their only job is to get applications filled out and get docs in, is going to do a better job than me doing it, because that's their only job. The person's job it is to build that loan out is going to do a better job because that's their only job. And I mean, it's just, and my reviews, my 5-star reviews have all skyrocketed since I've implemented the team. I mean, it's just because
you just have to realize you can't be everywhere.
Can't.
And like, I've had clients go like, hey, we talked to Brittany, and you have to like let people know, you set the precedent from the beginning. Like, this is a team effort.
Yeah.
And you're gonna want the first time over.
Sorry.
It's like because if something's going wrong, I'm dealing with that problem, and you're gonna want me to be dealing if something's going wrong in your deal, and not being like, hey, I'm following up with some paperwork.
I think clients get it and they understand it. It's more real estate agents that sometimes have an issue with
because they're idiots.
Well, I mean, they want, and I get it. They want to make sure that their clients get taken care of. And if they refer a client to me, they want to make sure that I'm the one doing the loan. And I am the one doing the loan. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to be the one that's, following up on the grandma's bank statement, or I'm not going to be the one who's processing their loan, because that's just not how mortgages work. And that's not how a successful and a good experience with a client works.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So obviously you guys have blown up. Didn't you guys win Rookie of the Year? Broker of the year?
Yeah, we wanted some rookie broker of the year, and then I know that Brian's on an advisory panel for United Wholesale Mortgage, which is one of the biggest wholesale lenders, and so he's up there, at those meetings with, what's Matt Ishba, and so he's rubbing elbows with billionaires. So yeah, we're doing good. Like I said, we've grown from a staff of 12 to a staff of 30. We've definitely had our bumps and bruises on the way. We've had loan officers come aboard. We've lost loan officers. The original partnership that we originally had is different than it is now, but everything's going good, and it's just tough. It's a grind every day.
Are you guys trying to expand?
Yes. So we have actually a guy down here right now from Boise who's going to be training.
Oh yeah, that young kid. I saw him. Yeah.
So he's a good, sharp guy. He's going to be down here working in my office for the next 3 months, and then he's going to be modern lending in Boise. And then we're also in the process of opening up a modern lending Scottsdale. Brian's cousin, who came out, who was like the number one guy at Quicken Loans, he came and worked in our office for a year, stayed at extended stay for a year, and he's doing his thing in Scottsdale now.
Are you guys trying to do Nashville too?
We're licensed there. We're not gonna. The model that we're going for is that we're not looking to be like a C2 Financial or like most other lenders are like, oh hey, you do loans, come work for us. We're looking for a very select type of individual to join our brand, and then to basically plant that person in there, give them the systems and the operating systems and everything that we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2 years building, to put them in a position to succeed, and then plant these offices of killers. And we also are possibly bringing on Modern Lending LA in the next 6 months. So we'll see how that goes.
That's exciting, dude.
We'll see.
I mean, I joke with you all the time. There was that day you guys went to Havasu and then flew back private, and then I texted the next day and I'm like, whatever, and it's like, that's the thing that it's like to watch you go from literally us sitting at Chili's, right, in your terrible suit that you should have never worn, and me being a brand new agent, I didn't, like, going back to like, I had no idea, and it's funny because now a loan officer's trying to get me. I'm like, bro, you weren't here when I knew nothing, right? You see me now, I knew absolutely nothing. I would call Taylor all the time and bug him. But it is inspiring to see, like, from 0 to 25 million to 50 to 75. Now you're a partner owning in a company. Did you ever think that, like, you would ever have gotten to this place like this? There's a chance that you and Brian build a massive company. Did you ever like when did you go, this could happen?
Man, probably I think recently. I would say like in the last year, I sat down with Brian because when I came into doing loans, I never thought of opening my own mortgage bank. Even when we went over to Modern Lending, I looked at it as not necessarily I want to build this big business empire brokerage. I looked at it as this is a necessity because to keep my business alive, I have to go from retail to broker. But I would say about a year ago, after we went through our first bumps and bruises, I was sitting there talking to Itzel and Brian. I was like, yeah, you know what? If things keep on going good and we learn this, we learn that, we keep on growing in this manner, and there's just so much that goes into it. Like now we're in the process of getting approved for our warehouse lines. We're going to open up $5 to $10 million lines of credit so we can start funding our own loans, and that's the first step. And that's the first step of being correspondent. So we're almost like a little mini bank. And then the next step is to go delegate, where you have your actual underwriters in-house. So there's a progression. There's stuff that we can do. But I would say about a year ago, I sat down, Itzel, Brian and I were talking, and we thought, hey, if this keeps on going the right way, like we have a real value add to not just to agents, but to lenders who want to go over on the broker side. We have a real value add that no other brokerage I think has. Yeah, you come over, they give you point, and you use your Salesforce or whatever, and you broker loans, and that's what you do. But you can't come over to an actual team and entity and brand like we have. So I think about a year ago, it's going to take time. It's not going to be fast. We're not going to go from our one office to 10 offices and millionaires, but I think we definitely have a shot.
I mean, you just keep growing so I can be like, yeah, that's my friend. I know him.
I know that guy.
Yeah. Oh, I know Taylor and Decker. Yeah, I have his number in my phone.
See, that's what Brian was asking. Brian was like, hey, because Brian's been able to meet all these people, like, all these big time guys. And he's like, when are you going to meet, when are you going to get rich, cool friends? I was like, Brian, you are my rich, cool
Exactly.
friend. That's you.
Exactly. I'm over here like, hey, we're hanging, like I hang out with you. I'm like, we're hanging out with Brian, right? Like Brian's going to be there because if he's not there, I don't want to come.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I need the rich friend.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with you two guys because it's like no idea is impossible. Yeah. And that's the exciting part. It is funny, like you were talking about when you were at Movement and they're like, oh, that's not that's not all his business. Well,
they used to always say that kind of would like make my blood boil. Oh, you can't get everyone. You can't get every deal. And I'm like, well, I used to always think like, why not?
Yeah.
Why can't you get every deal?
And it's funny because it's like that our industry is built that way.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you guys are kind of coming in at a perfect time where like, I mean, there's not too many young like real estate or loan officers that are so heavy in tech that like you guys are now pushing the envelope in that world that and everyone, I'll tell you what I feel like, and you could answer this too, is like since probably like the last 3 years I feel like clients are never been more like needing updates. Like I don't know if it's like the Amazon factor, like I buy something 100%. 2 days later from when I first started to now. Yeah. Oh, people want updates on top of updates on top of updates, and you're like, literally, I have, like I told you, I haven't got it back yet. Like,
instant gratification. They all want that. No, I definitely think so, and especially on the broker side. That's one of the things that I feel like, based off of what I've seen, that the broker channel is behind on is technology. Banks like UWM and stuff like that, their portals and stuff are nice, but the individual broker, I feel like, is really far behind on technology. And I think that with the systems that we're getting in place, we obviously still have a ton to learn, and there's probably still a huge learning curve that I don't even know about yet. But the technology side, 100%. I feel like that we're right up there up front.
I think it's cool that it's always interesting. Like you were saying, that one guy, Brian's cousin, who came out and lived out here for a year.
Yep.
And it's interesting how like the successful people go out and search more successful people.
Yeah.
And then the non-successful people are like, no, I don't need any help. No, I'm happy where I'm at. You're like, dude, you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? How are you not like striving to be like, I was talking to someone yesterday. I'm like, all I'm trying to do is, I was talking to James Shelby, who was, and I'm like, all I care about nowadays, he's like, what's that? I go, I just want to have interesting conversations with interesting people. And I'm like, because who knows where that conversation might lead to. So I never say no.
Yeah.
I say yes to everything. Right? And I got you to say yes to come to this podcast, which I never thought was going to happen. He almost bailed on me at the last second.
I tried.
Literally, I was waiting for the text today to be like, yo, listen, something came up. I can't come in. I'm going to have to push it out for another 3 weeks. Like, and then you're texting Adrian like, hey, can you just like have someone come steal the podcast room so I don't have to do it? So you work with a lot of agents, and that's who a lot of people follow my channels, is like, what is the thing that you think has separated, over your years from the good agents from your side of the industry sees? Because I don't think people understand the loan officers, the title reps, the escrows. Those are the real people that know who are good or not because they deal with them inside and out. So what do you think this, like a trait that you see with all the top people you guys work with? Because you guys work with killers to kind of help out realtors that are not at that position right now.
I would say like two traits that stick out. One is to set up your partner for success. Like one of the main things as a lender that you could do to set us up for success is like when you get an offer accepted, send an email with the contract, escrow contact info, and a timeline. So we know when the close of escrow is, when the appraisal contingency is up, when the loan contingency is up. So I would say the first thing is to set your affiliate up for success, whether it's your lender, escrow, title, get them in a position to where they can do their job, and you've done everything to enable that. And the second thing is to be a calming force. Doing real estate's like doing therapy. People are freaking out, they're buying, they're selling. The last thing and the worst thing is when I get a phone call with an agent and the buyer's freaking out and the agent's like, yeah, so what's going on, Taylor? I'm like, way to dump gas on the fire. Even if you don't know the answer. Oh, you know what? Hey, I'm sure everything's fine. I'll give Taylor a call, we'll sort it out, and I'll give you a call back. So I would say the two things. Do everything you can to set up your partners, whether, like I said, title, escrow, whoever, to succeed, and then just be a calming force. Even if you disagree with your lender or your title escrow, or your title officer or your escrow company and you think they're wrong, you don't ever want to show them up, right? Just be that calming force.
I think too many people get emotional in this game.
Yeah.
Like everyone else is emotional, and I think loan officers and agents are the ones, title and escrow, they don't really, but like us two, we're involved with the client so much. It's like we're here to like calm everyone down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the guys like when a fight's about to break up, like, no, everything's cool. You're not the one throwing the haymakers.
Well, not even just that. We're like, oh, this inspection report, there's a million things, Not like, oh yeah, you're right. Oh, this house is a POS. You're gonna say, okay, well, you know what? I know a lot of that stuff is standard. Let me take a look at it with my guy and we'll figure it out. Okay, cool.
It's like when appraisal comes in low.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you know what? Let me look at it. Yeah. Let me ask some questions. Like we had one come in yesterday. Hey, and I think too, it's like preparing your clients. If you should know if an appraisal is going to come in low.
Yeah.
You don't act like you don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes in way lower than you think.
Yeah.
And then you just prepare those clients for that, and then the expectation is there.
Yeah. You just deal with it, because if you show emotion, but if you show panic and you show, angst, then that's going to translate over 10 times to the client.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Taylor, why don't you are one of the most successful people I know.
Thank you.
I have a very small circle. I don't have that many friends. But what is one pointer you think that has helped you out over your career to end this off? Because, what we try to do is give value. There's a reason why you're at where you're at. It's not by accident. I hate when people always say that. It's not by accident or luck. You and Brian and where the company is and where it's going. And I want most people to realize that, because too many people think it's luck or by accident or some magic, like you said, that Brian was going to open something and be like, oh, it's that?
Yeah. I mean, you have to put yourself in a position to get lucky. I would just say that the one thing I would just say, if you want to beat the competition, is just to outwork the competition. You don't have to be smarter. You don't have to work at a better company. You don't have to have better marketing. You just outwork the competition. The rest will take care of itself.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Taylor, thank you so much, man.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, guys. Peace.